Coming to you live from a Walmart parking lot in a men's restroom. This is Thicc Man Inc.
We are live. Here with your host, top 100 Madden player Tristan Kilgannon, and ESPN featured athlete Isaiah Ashley. We are going to be covering a wide variety of topics today, from the NFL, NBA, and even the Daytona 500 and racing. Love us a like, subscribe, and starting off, we have the dunk contest controversy between Aaron Gordon and Derrick Jones Jr. And my initial reaction to the dunk contest was that it is ridiculous how it is scored. Yeah, the 50s Aaron Gordon and Derrick Jones are putting up were pretty spectacular. Aaron Gordon jumping over, it wasn't a 50, but he jumped over
Taco Fall
at the end, spun in there a few times, threw it between his legs. But how is it possible that every single dunk you're getting a 50? That means that every single dunk is perfect, and there's literally no flaws, and that seems widely unlikely. I think if the NBA dunk contest had 9.7s, 8.3s, you don't wind up with the controversy that we wound up with. And with all the judges sitting next to each other, conspiring to make it a tie, Dwayne Wade fucking up his math, or, he's from Miami, maybe he was like, oh, I got to give it to my guy. That's not being as talked much about. It could be likely. So I think the scoring system needs a revamp for the dunk contest. Hopefully they can get Aaron Gordon back again because his dunks were amazing. And by the way, with my complaints about the scoring, I don't really care who won. I just watching it, I was like, what is going on here? So, Isaiah, what do you think about the dunk
Tristan,
contest?
I love you, but getting the decimal system involved in the dunk contest is one of the stupidest things I've ever heard of. We don't want 8.743s. We don't want 9.2s. We want a nice, simple 1 through 10 system. And we've got multiple judges. If you take issue with the dunk contest now as run, the issue should be with who is judging it. I don't particularly care. I think there are some obvious areas where the main controversy, of course, being the dunk over Taco Fall, where Aaron Gordon nearly broke Taco Fall's neck. But the issues with the dunk contest are the judges not being former dunkers themselves. If you get gentlemen who have competed in the dunk contest and even won the dunk contest before, I feel like all these issues will be rectified. They will know what it takes to give a 50, but I agree with you that 50s were indeed being thrown out like party favors.
The problem though with having former people is like they don't want to let down the guys dunking. They don't want to be, oh, your dunk wasn't good enough, you're not getting a 50.
Do you think Michael Jordan and Dominique Wilkins give a crap about what other people feel? Do you think Derrick Jones is going to go easy on people?
Well, you didn't give any specific names.
I'm just saying, those are former dunk contest champions. Those guys don't care. They're NBA players. They're not going to be out here, oh, man, we don't hurt his feelings. They're professional athletes. They don't care about your feelings.
I kind of feel like Dwayne Wade and Scotty might have been like that, though.
Well, Dwayne Wade and Scotty never won a dunk contest.
Tens left and right.
They were good dunks. Can't really disagree with that.
I don't know. I think they need to be more strict with the scoring and have a lot more nuance.
The second you introduce precise rules in the decimal system, you ruin the dunk contest.
Okay, even if they didn't introduce decimals and what if they did 9, like just halves, so 9.5 or 8.5?
I still think it's incredibly dumb. Slightly less dumb than having 9.75, but that's just me.
9.9999.
Yeah, basically. But we're just going to disagree on this over and over again. I think the dunk contest is good with the exception of maybe the judges. You think it's a broken system.
Do you have any opinions on who you think should have won?
Oh, Derrick Jones easily. When it came down to it, Aaron Gordon nearly took Taco Fall, one of the great wonders of the world, out for the season with his dunk. He teabagged him on the way up. It was not a great – it's a phenomenal athletic feat to get that close to dunking over a 7'6" dude. But don't bring the 7'6" dude out if you're gonna injure him with your dunk. Like that.
I thought he got over him cleaner than who did Derrick Jones Jr. jump over again?
I think he jumped over 2 people.
He jumped.
Either way,
I don't remember.
It was the 50 dunk. It was the foul dunk of the night, and he fell short with that. That's why Aaron Gordon lost that contest. He chose the wrong time to bring out the 7'6" guy.
I think
Vince Carter, for the record, in his prime, easily jumping over Taco Fall. But
he's not in his prime.
Moving on, we are going to talk about the NBA All-Star Game. There are some big changes this year in the All-Star Game's rules now as played. First off, every quarter is like its own game in a way where whoever wins the quarter gets $100,000 to the charity of the team captain's choice. That goes on for the first 3 quarters. Then the team with the most points has to score 24 points in the fourth quarter to win the contest. The team with the fewer points still has to get to the mark the team with the most points sets. That could be.
That's not entirely true about the fourth quarter. It's 24 points from whoever's winning, not just 24 points.
I know. I said whoever the first place team is, it's 24 points. That's what I just said. But this is very fun because obviously the All-Star Game, scoring palooza, it'll be fairly close up through 3 quarters. No one's really trying on defense. But once that fourth quarter hits, it is really good basketball. It is Game 7 of the playoffs basketball. You've got guys trying their heart out. You've got Team LeBron triple-teaming Giannis. You've got Kyle Lowry flopping on the floor. You've got Kawhi Leonard hitting big shots. It's a phenomenal display of basketball at the highest level. And this is partially due to the fact that Kobe Bryant passed recently, and a lot of people were competing for him, ramping up the intensity like he would have wanted. And it's also the fact that giving a set number of points to reach is a much more competitive environment that will get NBA players going. I think this is a great new system. I think for the next 3 to 5 years, it's going to stay at this level of competition and will start to peter out eventually. But hey, that is what it is. For the next few years, it's going to be amazing.
Watching the fourth quarter, it almost didn't even feel like a regular. It didn't feel like a regular NBA game in a way. It didn't at all. Even an NBA playoff game. And it felt more, it reminded you of a backyard basketball game where everyone wants to win and there's no pressure of time. So, and they just need to reach a certain score. So there's no, if they're down by a lot, like wasn't Team LeBron down by 10 in the fourth? 10 or 12?
I believe it was
12?
9 points, but they were down by enough.
They were down by a bit. In a regular game where there's time pressure, I feel like they'd be more likely to not come back and stay down because they just see the clock winding down. And we don't have that. And it's a backyard basketball atmosphere, street ball, and you just have to get to a certain score. You're like, if we just hit 2 threes, we're 1 shot away. And when you're down 4 and there's no time limit, you're like, oh, we just need to not let them score. And that's why they're playing much more intense defense than if they're down 4 with 20 seconds left and they're just fouling. So I thought that was a really cool aspect of the fourth quarter. The rest of the game was more competitive than other years, but there's still some slamming it down, not
it's
playing
the
much
All-Star
defense.
Game.
But the fourth quarter rule I thought was an excellent change of pace. And if there wasn't this rule change, I think it probably would have been as usual with no one talking about it too much.
I disagree. I think this All-Star Game was going to be very competitive from the start, due to obviously recent events with Kobe Bryant. But I agree, it was a great atmosphere. The NBA's made great choices. Shout out to Chris Paul coming up with the idea and presenting it to Adam Silver. And shout out to Adam Silver for being a forward-thinking commissioner on like pretty much every other one in sports and actually going through with this idea.
Cough, cough, Rob Manfred.
Roger Goodell. Pick one. They're both terrible. But that was our thoughts on All-Star Weekend. Let us know what you think. And moving on, we are going to talk a little bit about the wide world of football. And starting off, in a recent bit of skullduggery, Greg Robinson has been arrested and is facing 20 years in prison for moving 157 pounds of weed around in El Paso, Texas, right by the border. And that's a lot of weed. The estimated street value bounces around a little bit from people I've talked to. The general consensus, though, is $500,000. And I'm going to give you some perspective with that. So 150 pounds of weed is one Brandon Banks, the lightest NFL player in the league right now, currently plays for the Redskins. It is 64 Chucky dolls. The doll features heavily in Child's Play and that I've drawn comparisons to. It is 35 Mason Rudolph's helmets being swung with rage. It is 1.2 Swaggers, the previous mascot of the Browns who tragically passed away recently. And it is 546 cowboy hats. Now to the money. $500,000 will buy you 7.5 houses in Cleveland, Ohio. 4,761 porterhouse steaks for 2 from Ruth Chris, 526 Mason Rudolph helmets, the annual salary of a backup punter in the NFL, and 55,555 rape whistles, which our friend Greg Robson may soon be needing.
Oh my. Yeah, man, it's not too bright. There's a lot of other things you could have spent that on.
It's a lot of money. I mean, I'm looking at it this way. He's an NFL player who was playing meaningful minutes for the Cleveland Browns. So he probably wasn't too happy with his lot in life, trying a little bit to make some extra money. And credit to him. He went from a very forgettable player to one of the most memorable ones in the last 5 or 10 years. I will never forget this little bit of buffoonery from Greg Robinson. But
I mean, he's got to be so stupid illegally selling marijuana. If you want to be involved in the marijuana business, why don't you just set up a nice legal hemp shop somewhere in California, somewhere where you aren't going to go to jail for the next 20 years. He probably doesn't need the money. He was a second overall pick, got a big contract when he was drafted, has been playing in the NFL for the past few years. And also, he was with an Uber driver, I think, when this happened. Why are you attempting to smuggle 157 pounds of marijuana in an Uber? I don't know if I read the article right.
Yeah, he splurged a little bit. He got that Uber XL.
But why are you doing that? You don't need the money, more than likely. If he does need the money, that's pretty sad considering he was a second overall pick and has been playing in the NFL for the past few years. So I think he's incredibly stupid. And he's never going to play in the NFL again. He's going to be in jail.
Well, that's where I'm going to stop you, Tristan. From what I can tell, Mr. Robinson never partook in smoke yet, which means if he gets off of this, he'll be good in the NFL's eyes. As long as he didn't smoke the sticky icky, the NFL does not care.
But it doesn't look like he's going to get off of it.
Hey, we'll have to wait and see about that.
Text.
We're cheering for you, Greg. Best of luck with the Texas legal system.
All right. Well, keeping it with the NFL, it has been recently come out that the NFL playoff structure is going to change dramatically. And the last time that the NFL changed the playoff structure was in 2002 when the Houston Texans came into the league, and it shifted from 3 divisional winners and 3 wild card winners from each contest to 4 divisional winners and 2 wild card winners from each conference that we've known our whole lives. Me, Isaiah and I's whole life.
Been a while.
And I was not paying attention to the NFL when I was 2. So this is going to be a big change for us, and I personally think it is exciting. It is not every day that the Giants have a better shot at making the playoffs. We will go from seeing 6 playoff teams to 7 playoff teams from each conference. The more football come playoff time is going to be amazing. 3 games on Saturday, 3 on Sunday. I think that is a win for football. It is. The players agree to it. They're not all up in arms. It really isn't that much more load on the schedule. It just takes away a bye. So I think that part of the news that has come out from the collective bargaining agreement is a good move for football.
I think it's a terrible move for football. And I think it's a terrible move for a few reasons. One, the big complaint last year about the playoffs was a team from the NFC East getting an automatic bid when they were clearly worse than 2 or 3 others in the NFC. That was not addressed. The whole automatic bid system is, in fact, really screwy with football. That was completely ignored. 2, this is purely in the owner's favor. This is greed, in my opinion. And it's going to make more money for the few owners who make it in. That one extra game, I'm sure, will generate a lot of revenue, but I don't think this is very thought out for the players. You can see guys like J.J. Watt recently spoke out saying he hates the new CBA. But this got me thinking a little bit, who is on the NFL Players Association who agreed to this? And I started reading down the list, and I don't know who these people are. DeMaurice Smith, no idea who that is. Eric Winston, this dude looks like a pedophile. Why is he on the NFLPA? Mark Herzlich, I can't say his name right.
Mark Herzlich, Giants, baby.
Yeah, Mark Herzlich, great. New York Giants, questionable why he's on there. Sam Achu, bless you. Then we finally get some people I recognize in Richard Sherman and Adam Vinatieri, but it's a bunch of no-name players. Like, why are these people making the decisions for the NFL players? It is very curious to me.
See, I highly disagree with you with the playoffs because it isn't that much more on the players. The players would like another opportunity to make it in the playoffs and get another run. And if you take away an automatic playoff bid, like you say they should address, then divisional games literally don't matter at all. And I think that'd be horrible for the playoffs. And it's something that a lot of teams love and cherish. It would take away a lot of rivalries, and I don't think that'd be good at all for
divisional games already don't matter, Tristan. The Vikings won 2 last year and still made the playoffs. You can lose all 6 of your divisional games and still be a playoff team in the NFL as a wild card team.
You're definitely not going to win your division with 6 divisional losses. So
okay.
And then if you win your division because you won your divisional games, then you get a better playoff season.
Well, if you win your division, you're still not guaranteed a bye. Getting back to that, you're taking away a bye, which is motivation for teams to try in the regular season.
Well,
for football, for a 15 or 16 teams in each conference, this is too many. 7's too many.
This past season, the Ravens fucking shit the bed because they got a bye.
The Ravens messed up for a lot of reasons. They were resting their players for a week before. I don't think that's just on the bye. I think that's on coaching a little bit with Harbaugh. But so what? The Ravens were the 1 seed. They were going to get the bye anyway.
I agree. I disagree with you that I think the playoff structure change is good. I think it's going to be exciting. The thing where I will agree with you on is that under this new system, it's going to move from a 4-game preseason to a 3-game preseason, and from a 16-game regular season to a 17-game regular season. It makes no sense. I think if you're going to move to a 17 regular game season, you need to take away 2 preseason games. So there's 1 less game being played. Now, you can't just that is exploiting players. You're forcing what used to be a preseason game that didn't matter. Star players didn't really play towards playoff bonuses, making the playoffs, and just teams being relevant in general. Making them play moving an obsolete game to a game that matters a lot, I think is much more dumb than the playoff structure.
The issue with that, and I'm going to talk about the 17-game season in a second, 90% of the team's players are playing in those games regardless. So I don't think it makes that much of a difference. Here's my issue with the 17-game season. 1, the 17-game season presents the obstacle of having an unfair advantage for half the teams in the league who get more than 8 home field games. And the solution to that is playing at neutral sites. But at the same time, playing at neutral sites is not good for the NFL because you can get games like in Mexico City where what was going to be an amazing game a few years ago between 2 of the high-flying offenses in the league, the Chiefs and the Rams, has to be canceled because of terrible field conditions. You get London games where the Jaguars have to take a 10-hour flight every year. No one wants to see a bunch of that. And then you have the possibility of playing at neutral sites. And I've got a question for you. If you're a football fan in the state of Nebraska, are you really going to go watch a Detroit Lions and Boston or New England Patriots game there? No.
Boston.
The Boston Patriots. Boston. The Sox. Are you really going to go watch games in neutral sites in states like that? No, you're going to watch the Huskers. Having 17 regular season games does not work. I will say, though, it has one advantage I'm going to look forward to. This is creating the potential for the first 0-17 season by the New York Football Giants. Stay tuned for that.
The Giants are not going 0-17. They're winning the Super Bowl next year.
They got a better chance of winning the Puppy Bowl.
But another thing to add is with the 17-game season, though, the revenue share for players would go from 47% to 48.5%, which is $5 billion more dollars in players' pockets, which is a shitload of money. So that'd be a big benefit for them. It's crazy how 1.5% is $5 billion in NFL's yearly revenue.
Yeah, well, you split that out a little bit, though, and it's not that huge to all the players, although I guess all the players won't be getting that advantage. But I hate this system at every facet. I think the NFL, for the most part, has good regular season games and a good playoff system, both of which are being devalued while putting additional strain on the players for the owner's greed. My co-host clearly disagrees with that.
No, I agree with the regular season changes being stupid. I think playoff changes will be good, though.
So you're okay with one situation where there's going to be more games, but not a situation where there's going to be more.
It's one more game.
It's one more game for the regular season.
The playoffs?
A 17-game season is one more game than a 16-game season.
I'm talking about the playoffs.
Yes,
I'm not talking
and
about the regular season.
it's a one-game thing. We're talking about different
It's
things.
not being added to the regular season. It's a wild card game.
2 wild card games.
2 wild card games.
Devaluing the playoffs.
I disagree.
It's okay to be wrong.
But speaking of money, Greg Olson just signed a shiny new deal worth $7 million, $5.5 million guaranteed with the Seattle Seahawks. He also visited with Buffalo and Washington, but I think it's very obvious why he chose to go to the Seahawks. The Redskins are probably 5 years to 10 years out from ever being relevant again. Their future is very uncertain. Alex Smith, will he play in his reconstructed leg? Or if Dwayne Haskins plays, does he improve? A 35-year-old Olson does not want to go there. The Bills were probably more attractive, but when you compare them to Josh Allen and Russell Wilson, I think you're going to want to play for the future Hall of Famer and Russell Wilson.
There's also the fact no one wants to live in Buffalo.
That is true. But, I mean, Seattle's not – I mean, that's cold and rainy there,
Yeah,
too.
they got legal weed. They should get in contact with Greg Robinson.
Yeah, probably. The Seahawks almost beat the NFC Super Bowl team in the playoffs last year without their entire backfield and played the entire majority of their season without their breakout tight end, Will Dissly. They would have been in the Super Bowl, in my opinion, without injuries. Josh Allen isn't Russell Wilson, they stated. DK Metcalf, along with Tyler Lockett, are better than the Bills receivers. Who knows if Antonio Brown even makes his way out to Seattle? Greg Olson only has 1 year left. The Seahawks offense will be lethal next year with him and all the other weapons, and maybe we'll see the Seahawks in a Super Bowl.
So Antonio Brown's not going to Seattle. He's more likely to go to the hospital after dropping about 100 pounds in his head the other day. Throw in the video of that. But Greg Olson's old, man. He is so old for the tight end position to be carrying the ball. He's like Jason Witten 2.0. He's going to catch the ball. He's going to take two steps
better, though,
and get tackled. Jason Witten's a Hall of Famer. Greg Olson's borderline. But this really shows to me the same reason Greg Olson didn't want to go to Seattle is the reason he got out of Carolina. He doesn't want to play on a team which is going to tank and have a terrible season and squander the latter years of his career. He wants to compete for a Super Bowl. How much of an asset he's going to be, I don't know. I don't think he's going to be a big one. But, hey, good for him.
He had 600 receiving yards last year.
Well, he's a year older, and 600 ain't that many.
It's decent for a tight end.
Decent doesn't cut it.
52 catches.
How many yards is the breakout dude from Seattle projected to have before he tore his ACL up? More than 600. We'll call that the Russell Wilson effect, though, because Greg Olson was getting thrown to by a bum-armed Cam Newton and Kyle Allen.
Will Dissly through 1 second.
Yeah, the breakneck research process here at Thicc Man Inc.
Will Dissly through six games had 262, and he had 4 touchdowns and 262 yards receiving through 6 games.
He was going to have way more than 600, probably about 700, but that's beside the point. I don't think this is an impactful move. The real issue with Seattle is their skill players dropping like flies, so good for them. They got depth, but it's old depth. Grand scheme of things, doesn't matter. Vikings winning the Super Bowl regardless.
Did you say Vikings winning the Super Bowl?
Did I stutter?
The Giants are winning the Super Bowl before the Vikings ever sniffed the Super Bowl.
Well, unfortunately for the Giants, they're starting Daniel Jones at quarterback. But this is about to devolve into a debate, which we are going to have later on. How would you take us to our next topic?
So, surprisingly, we're talking about racing. It is not necessarily for the best reasons. The Daytona 500 went on this past weekend, and there was a crazy crash, scary crash. And I've never been super involved in racing. I used to watch racing a little bit when I was younger, probably about 11 or 12. Thought all the cars were really cool and all that shit. But when watching racing in general, I'm sure people watch racing more consistently than me. No, probably kind of almost got desensitized. They watch crazy crashes all the time where cars are flipping in the air. And when you saw Ryan Newman's crash, I thought, oh, that doesn't even look that bad. Those crashes happen all the time. But then you don't see him walk out of the car, and you're like, oh, shit, the car's on fire. He's not able to walk out. It was scary to see. Luckily, this past weekend, there was a picture in the hospital of him and his daughters. There's a video of him walking out of the hospital. That was really nice to see. Yeah, I mean, it's scary to see. I think this incident made people realize how dangerous NASCAR really is. They're going around a track 195 miles an hour in a ball of metal for 500 laps. Bad things can happen, and when they do happen, there's still a good chance that you can get seriously injured.
Yeah, boxcar racing isn't exactly the safest hobby to have in the world. I'm glad he made it out of it relatively unharmed. I'm glad that NASCAR is able to not have to retire another number. But shout out to Denny Hamlin, who is going unappreciated, in my opinion. Won the Daytona 500. Racing legend, probably going to be in the NASCAR Hall of Fame. Again, though, thoughts and prayers out to the family of the driver who was in the crash.
Do you think Denny Hamlin feels like bad about winning almost? Because Ryan Newman was in first before he got bumped from behind, I think.
Well, I don't think he feels bad about winning, but at the same time, they're doing victory donuts while a car is on fire is a tad questionable. But he did just win the NASCAR equivalent of the Super Bowl, so I can't really blame him. I'd be doing donuts too.
You kind of like Adam did donuts at one time.
I might have been the one to bump him if I was driving, but that's beside the point.
Anyway, that has been all for this week on the Thicc Manning podcast. Thank you for tuning in. Leave us a like, subscribe. Let us know what you thought about the NBA dunk contest, the potential or what's more likely going to be a new NFL playoff setup, the 17-game setup, everything. See you later.
Adios.